What if you could step out of the day-to-day and see your business from a whole new perspective? Welcome to Above the Business, where we empower you to rise above the daily grind and embrace a higher way of business ownership. It's time to build your business by design. All right, everyone, welcome to the Above the Business podcast. Yes, you are in the right place. If you're accustomed to going and listening to the Club Capital Leadership podcast, don't turn the channel. You are absolutely in the right place. Here with my partner and good friend, Micah. Micah, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm glad to join. You know I don't, and our listeners know I don't join every single one, but we've got some fun news to be able to share with everybody today.
Well, we do. And obviously today is the day that I've been hinting around to on some of the episodes of the last few weeks. We've had the podcast for 4 years, and this is our fat pitch. I heard Ted Williams a long time ago, one of the best, maybe arguably the best baseball hitter of all time, said that the way that he became such a good hitter is he waited for his fat pitch. And for 4 years, we have been known as the Club Capital Leadership Podcast. But today is officially a new day, and we could not be more excited. And so it is the official launch of the Above the Business podcast. We're going to talk to you about what does the name mean? How did we come up with that name? We're going to give you some behind the scenes look into some of the conversations, how we arrived at not only the name change, but why we did it and what the future is going to hold. And, what does the Above the Business brand actually look like? And really at the end of the day, how does this all impact you, our loyal listeners, over the years? And how are we going to be able to serve you more? So as we walk through all of that, I'll first start and share with you, why are we doing this? At the end of the day, we could have just continued on doing what we were doing. Well, if you listen to podcasts, you know that you're a growth-oriented, growth mindset type person. And that's just who Micah and myself and the entire teams that we represent. We're not like that. We want to make sure that we don't rest on our laurels, that we are always growing, and we want to be able to find different ways to serve all of you. I think, Micah, if I look back, it's probably been about a year and a half, at least a year and a half, since we started to have legitimate discussions in our Monday meetings around what are the things that how can we do more? We've built a great audience of loyal listeners, and we want to continue to serve them in ways. What would that look like? And we had so many 30-minute to hour-long discussions, throwing out different things and looking at other people in the marketplace, other podcasts that you and I obviously really enjoy. What are they doing? What's working about that? And how can we do more to be able to serve all of you, to help you to become better business owners? And so I'd love, Micah, for you just to kind of give your thoughts before we kind of get into the genesis of the name change and what that things are going to look like, just maybe around your thoughts over the last, again, year and a half, maybe even close to 2 years, where we've been having discussions around how can we do more? How can we serve more? How can we give back more? How can we impact more people?
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's not just a great name, right? Which it is, and we know, but it's really the start of something different. I mean, it's not fully different. We're going to be expanding on what we're doing today in more ways, but I think it's just this sense, and we knew it about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where and one of the things that we'll kind of talk about today, and that a lot of I think the listeners following don't know is there's really two organizations that's kind of behind behind the podcast, and it was really a project for both of us. It wasn't necessarily a business. It was a project that started 4 years ago. And we, it went better than we thought it would 4 years ago. We've had some of the episodes that we've talked about that, in the past, which is kind of like how the podcast start type of thing. But it really was. We said, okay, this is going well. And, we meet on it. We talk about the episodes. We look at the traction. I think, but ultimately it was a project for us. And, it also, certainly helps, deliver kind of leads to, our core businesses and stuff like that. But we started realizing it was just way more than a project. I mean, yes, we both enjoy it. We both enjoy podcasts. We both enjoy kind of putting something out there and having our own podcast to kind of add, to the ethers. But we really started to realize, a lot from, just the traction and the feedback, from a lot of the listeners was, we've really got something here. And we've got something that we're really not fully looking at it appropriately as a business yet. And if we started to look at it as a business and not just a project, what would we do with it?
Yep.
And so as we started to think about what would we do and, what do our listeners want, or how could we contribute more, it kind of led to this, which has been fun, right? I mean, I mean, not to be, totally cliche with talking about it, but we had to kind of zoom out and we had to, and kind of where some of the name came from, right? Is we had to kind of get above the business, step out a little bit and say, what would we do here? What would we change? What should, we do differently? So that's what we're excited to be able to share, with everybody today. It's kind of what's the future look like once we started to say, okay, I think we can have a bigger reach if we actually look at it differently. I think we can have a bigger impact if we look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that when we started to have discussions around, if we looked at this as an actual business and not just a project that we have, we started to kind of see, I mean, there's a whole team, and we shared this on some other past episodes about like all the people behind the scenes that make this happen, pull it together, that edit it, that put it out on email and on social. And there's a whole team around getting some of the guests on, and there's a process and there's structure and there's routine to how we do certain things. And so we needed to approach it as a business. And so when we started to approach it that way, we started to set, well, what's the vision and what are we going to do? And then how are we going to make that happen? And the how is a lot of the ways that you and I started to kind of differ at times on like, well, how are we going to pull that off? And what is that going to look like? And how does that benefit your brand? And how does that benefit my brand? And how do we come together? And how do all of these moving parts, how do we make that work? And, there were many times that we were aligned and we came up with an idea. And I'm sharing this for all of you, not only to give you kind of the behind the scenes, but also to share some teaching moments in some of this, is that Mike and I did not agree. In fact, Mike and I disagreed in a lot of things. Ultimately, we very much came together because we definitely saw what the vision of this could be. And we started to work through, well, what would that look like? And I'd float an idea out and Micah would float an idea out. And Micah has strengths that I do not have. And one of the advantages I think about having a partner in something is you have somebody that can check you and can say, hold on just a second. I'm not so sure that would actually work. And that was very valuable both ways. He would share an idea and I would say, I don't think that's going to work. And here's why I don't think that's going to work. And then I would do the same thing. Well, for many of us, if you're a small business owner and you don't have a business partner or partners around you, you don't have anybody to check your idea. So all of your ideas are good, so to speak. You're certainly trying to advance the company, but you don't have anybody to be able to tell you, or very often you don't have somebody to say, I'm not so sure that's the right move to make. And furthermore, it may be the right move for you to make, but is now the right time for you to make that move. And so having someone to be able to give you honest feedback, and, Mike and you and I had some very passionate conversations around things. And I very much value that. I sent Mike a message last week and said, hey, I just want you to know, I appreciate you pushing back. I appreciate you pushing back on a lot of things. That helps me to be better. That helps me to be better because I have to try to put myself in that situation, because for your team, they're going to go along oftentimes with whatever it is that you say. But how can you have somebody in your life, not just personal life, but in your business, that can hear that idea and give you honest feedback and hold you accountable to the things that you said that you were going to do? And a lot of times we don't necessarily always have that. Just your thoughts around that one particular thing, Micah?
That's one of the areas that we both see so much in kind of our businesses and working with small business owners is, for a lot of small business owners, they're sole owners. They're, for a lot of them, just single member, owners, depending on their team size, but still it's one owner. And there can be, despite, uh, your family or some of the other people, even within the business, there's kind of this lack of accountability,
Yeah.
on that business owner, to that, is really, there to gut check you on a lot of decisions. And so I think a lot of business owners kind of run into that on the accountability side. And they'll say, no, I'm ultimately accountable to, my family and the take home, and that's who I'm doing this for. And yeah, that's true, but not all the business decisions are run by them, right? You're not running everything, by your spouse necessarily, right? And even some of the people within the team, some of your top leaders, not all of the business decisions are being run by them. Bank movements are not being run by them, probably, right? There's certain things that aren't happening, right? That ultimate overall strategy that at the end of the day really impacts not only you but your entire team, are really staying within just your own head normally, and going, man, I hope this works out. So yeah, I think there's we see a lot of that, and so I think you and I do a good job of doing that. I mean, our business is a partnership. And what we have with the podcast is a partnership, and everything has its pluses and minuses, and you disagree with partners, but ultimately, I think just incredibly healthy for us to have dialogue that says, where do we want to take this?
Are you an agency owner looking to grow your revenue, increase your bottom line, and better manage your taxes? Club Capital is here to help. Club Capital is the largest accounting and advisory firm for insurance agents in the country, providing monthly accounting, tax strategy, and CFO services. Way more than bookkeeping and your everyday run-of-the-mill tax prep, Club Capital is focused on providing financial and tax advisory services that help you plan and forecast your agency's performance. Their financial dashboards and agency forecasting tools help you better understand your agency's historical performance, create and measure future targets, and see how your agency compares to your peers around the country. Imagine what it would be like to understand the impact to your bottom line when deciding to hire a new employee, or forecast the impact rate changes or commission rates will have on your business. With over $200 million in tracked annual revenue and $140 million in tracked annual expenses, Club Capital has the data and the team to help you make better informed decisions for your agency. They will help you turn that back office stress into the backbone of your agency's success by giving you the tools to take your agency and your leadership to the next level. Visit club.capital today to book a solution overview with one of our business consultants. Club Capital, way more than a CPA firm.
Ambition is the first step towards success. It's time to level up your agency. And Coach P Consulting will help you do just that by using the same strategies he used to sell over 700 life insurance policies in 2021 alone. Now, this is not your regular one and done type coaching. You'll get personalized coaching 2 days a week, every week of the month, and you'll get a live look behind the scenes of his team training and an office that's performing at the highest level. There's a reason Coach P Consulting is the fastest growing coaching company for insurance agency owners in the country. Coach P will train your team alongside his own and show you the exact steps they're taking to achieve Chairman Circle, exotic travel, and multi-line presence club, and be one of the few agents to be selected to have a third office. So whether your goal is to be at the top of your local market or amongst the best in the country, this training will give you the strategies and the tactics to get there. For just $250 a month, you'll get high-level coaching each week from someone who is already getting it done at that level, and his strategies work, and it's time to put them to work for you. Sign up at CoachPConsulting.com and get your first full month for free when you mention the Club Capital Leadership Podcast.
Yeah, that's right. One of the one of the very, not the first, but one of the companies that I owned at a time was called Iron Sharp Principles. And it was this idea of like iron sharpens iron. And I feel like that's our certainly our dynamic. And again, I said this before, but I have skills that I think Micah has, but maybe I'm a little stronger in, and Micah certainly has skills that I'm not as strong in, and so even today we were having a discussion with some of our vendors and our marketing partners, and I said, Micah, I think you need to take that, like that's better, that's in your alley, you line those things up better than I do. And that has taken me a long time, even myself, to get to a place of recognizing, hey, this is the area that I need to stay. Let me swim in this area. I can dabble over here a little bit, but I'm just not as good at it as Micah is. It's just that he is so superior in those areas. And I think that that's a really nice compliment. So get you some people in there.
So let's dive in. Let's dive in. Let's tell them what we're doing.
All right. So about 6 months ago, we were having one of our Monday meetings, and you said, I've been thinking, I think we should maybe change the name of the podcast. And I said, you know what? I have too. And I already know what the name of it should be. And you said, really? Okay. Well, what's the name? I said, the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber, who we're trying to get on the podcast, actually. The name of that book, or the essence of that book, is work on the business, not in the business. And a lot of our listeners will be familiar with that. You said, yeah. I said, I think there's actually a third. It's above the business. I think that there's working in the business, there's working on the business, but then there's a level that we can get to, which is to be able to get above the business. And I think the name should be called Above the Business. Micah, your thoughts whenever you first heard me share that with you and kind of that vision that I had about the name change?
Yeah, I mean, I think you coupled it with, talking about, I think one of the Friday episodes that you were going to do on that too, and just kind of your, I think just your overall philosophy of it, and it just resonated with me. It resonated with me quite a bit. I mean, I think about that. I think about that quite a bit. I never use that term. But I've always used like the term like zoom out, and you really got to look at things. I think I've said like you've got to look at things from above. I think that's how I've like thought about things before, and that for me that always came to like I think I don't know where it was. I think we were like thinking about like it was like history. Like this actually goes outside the business. We were like in school talking about history and stuff like that, and you think about sometimes all the conflict in the world. And then sometimes like it was this thought of like you zoom out and you're like from outer space looking down like at the earth, and everything seems fine. Everything seems much easier to like think about.
Yep.
When you're kind of that far away, right? And the closer you get, it's kind of realizing like, oh wow, things can be quite chaotic, right? But if you can get far enough away to actually think about things maybe a little bit differently, pull yourself out of the day-to-day, the conflict, the things that are coming at you, it makes you think a little bit clearer. I think that's actually where I kind of thought, first came up with that idea, or at least it was exposed to me. So yeah, when you said it, I was like, man, that not only makes sense, but it also sounds really good. And my brain was turning on, just what that would look like in a logo, and man, that looked good on a t-shirt, and man, that just resonates. That'll look good on a podcast cover. I mean, I was just like, I think we're set on that. I think I was looking up the domain name, actually, we were talking about it to see if we could get it.
Yeah. Well, I think that, and for all of our listeners over the next, from this point forward, we're going to find all kinds of different ways to share with you, what does it actually mean to be able to get above the business? Like specifically, what is in, what is on, and what is above? And we'll share that with you throughout to help you to be able to get above the business. So not just philosophically, what does that look like, but also what is the journey that you can go through to help you to be able to get above the business, to get out of the day-to-day operations of the business and be able to see it from above, be able to make strategic decisions, be able to make some logical decisions in the business, be able to look at things, look around the corner at things that other people wouldn't have that perspective on. And that's what we want to help you to do. In fact, our tagline is to help you to be able to build a business by design. We want you to help build the business by design and not by default. And I think that when you go out and you start to align all of these things, Micah said, hey, we wanted to approach this itself, not as a project, but as a business. Furthermore, we were very much aligned on the mission of our companies. Micah would use language around building a better business owner. I would use language around helping somebody go from being the rainmaker of their business to becoming the architect of their business. At the end of the day, we were attempting to do, and still are for that matter, attempting to do the same things. And so we were so aligned in the way that we approached it. Language might have been a little bit different. We saw that as an opportunity to be able to pull that together into the podcast. And the branding above the business just kind of codified all of those things together. So again, we're going to share with you, what does it actually look like? What's in, what's on, and what's above. We'll be doing many different episodes for that. But let me share with you a couple of things that's not changing. The Monday interview episodes that we do, those are all going to be the exact same. I always start the interviews. In fact, I did a couple today at the time of this recording where, we start with background, origin story. And now I'm going to finish those interviews asking people, what does getting above the business look like for you? And so that's one of the new structural questions I'm going to put into the Monday interviews. And then our Friday solo, those short 5 to generally 15-minute episodes or so are going to be designed to be able to help you to build your business by design and help you to be able to get above the business. Look, you're all busy. There's many, there's the Jockos and the Joe Rogan podcast out there, the Huberman podcast out there that are, the 2 and 3 hour podcasts. But we know that if you're a podcast listener and you're listening to many different podcasts. And so we want you to know that the experience that you've had in listening to the podcast is going to be the same, but it's going to be better. We really believe that this is going to help us to be able to even attract some much bigger names into the podcast. Now, look, I'm so grateful for the people that I've been able to connect with on here and all of the different guests. But there's also this opportunity we saw to be able to attract different big name people to help you to be able to get above the business, to be able to see the business from a lot of different angles. In fact, that leads me to my next point, Micah. One of the things that we definitely agreed upon when we both, I think we kind of said it almost simultaneously, is we said, this podcast is not a leadership podcast. At the end of the day, when we started the podcast, we said, well, what should we name it? Not just, let's call it the Club Capital Leadership Podcast. I mean, it was just that. Well, the reality is this podcast is a business podcast. It's a small business and entrepreneurial podcast. And so we come at business from all different angles. We know the vast majority of our listening audience are insurance agency owners, not everybody. Pretty much everybody's doing, less than 10 million in top line revenue, have 50 or less employees. We, for the most part, we know our audience. And we want to come at that from so many different angles, not just leadership. Yes, leadership is incredibly important, but it's one aspect of business. There's self-leadership, there's marketing, there's decision-making, there's financial things, there's leading a team, developing a team, recruiting a team, strategy, all of those different things. And so we think that this rebrand is also going to help us to be able to attract different people. So Micah, love to hear your thoughts just around that aspect of it and it being a small business entrepreneurial podcast and just your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll cover this quickly too, because I want to also talk about, there's things that are not changing, right? It's a lot about what we're adding to it. So I definitely want to spend some time there. But in terms of being small business and just generally entrepreneurial, yeah, I mean, it was this realization of this our podcast name doesn't encompass really like what we're doing. And it's really almost limiting us to kind of who our audience is, right?
Yeah.
Just even from the first part of it is Club Capital Leadership Podcast. Like ultimately, I think this could have better legs if it's not, if it's its own thing, right?
Yeah.
And so really taking Club Capital kind of out of the name, like this isn't just for the clients that we happen to be working with right now, right? Which is kind of how it seemed, right? It kind of seemed like very niche and, hey, if you're one of our clients, take a listen to some of these episodes, right? And it definitely wasn't that. And we started to see that we were having traction, certainly outside of our current client base. And we said, okay, well, if other people do like this, if they happen to stumble upon it and, listen to the Club Capital Leadership Podcast, which is also, kind of a mouthful, it'd be nice to almost take the filter off, right? Like let's kind of take that filter off of it. And then we said, okay, well, we're also not just a leadership podcast. It's kind of like one of the things we talk about. Right. And so, yeah, it was that evolution of, we got to change the name, right? We're definitely more than this. Let's talk about more than this. And then let's give it its own identity. Let's give it its own brand that allows it to be something else. And, our businesses are changing, and Club Capital, too, we don't only work with insurance agents anymore. I mean, we're just expanding our other lines of business and taking some of the models that that we've excelled at within the insurance world and moving into other niches, franchise organizations, and youth sports are some of the initial ones that we're working on. But we're going to have a lot of other clients that are listening to this that are just outside of our initial kind of niche industries that we need to be able to cater to all of them. We certainly do cater to all of them. And that's one of the things we've loved about the podcast to date, is that we actually, like, even though, on the Club Capital side, we've focused on insurance agents as, our initial target market. From the podcast side, we don't talk about business with the filter of insurance. Both you and I have always felt it's really healthy to not put blinders on, right? And listen to what other people are doing, right? Listen to other industries. Gosh, I mean, I get so much inspiration and ideas when I hear, people from other industries talking about how they're solving a certain problem, or how they implemented something in their company, or a technology in their company, or something where I'm like, oh, wow, what a great idea, right? And it's not to say that people within one industry don't have, right ideas, but why put a filter on it? Listen to everybody and see what they're doing. So we've always kind of had that. And so now it was just this sense of, let's break outside of this. And one of the biggest ways to do that is to change the name and, allow it to be a little bit more open, to others that want to listen. But, so let's talk about some of the things that we're adding.
So you've heard the genesis. How did the name change happen? What are we trying to do? Why are we doing it? What's not changing the experience? But what are we adding? What does it actually look like? I hear what you're saying, Bradley. It sounds like an empty promise of provide more value, but like, what are you actually talking about? At the end of the day, right now, above the business is going to be the podcast, as you've all known it under the new name. It is going to be a monthly newsletter, and is going to be events that we're going to do. In fact, we have 7 events scheduled for 2024, and our very first event is going to be in 2023. That is happening on December the 12th and December the 13th. It is what we call the annual. Now, these are events that I was doing under my brand and have been for the last couple of years. We've taken these events and been able to put them under the above the business brand. Now, right now, all of those events are scheduled to be virtual. We do have a vision down the road that we can see, especially one of the events kind of coming together in person. And we're really excited about it. So we are really excited to announce that our very first event is the annual. We're going to help you to be able to build a business plan that actually works, and one that you can get behind, one that you can believe in for 2024. I have created so many business plans over my career. Many of them, I spent a day or a couple days on them, and then it just sat on a shelf or sat on some digital dust, and I never looked at it again. There is a way to do it to where you can actually have a business plan that truly works throughout the year, that you can get behind and your team can get behind. And we want to give you the mindset, we want to give you the skill set, and we want to give you a tool or tools, a tool set that you can have. And so if you go to abovethebusiness.co, 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 you'll find your way there to be able to purchase a ticket to come to the event. And again, we'll be sharing with you more about what the 7 events are going to be. The event series, the small business series, is going to be in 2024. So again, Above the Business is the podcast as you know it, is an event series, and it is also a monthly newsletter that we think we're going to pack in to where it's not just an email. It actually is going to be some tangible things that you can take away and implement right away into your business. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've got much bigger plans down the road. But Micah, your thoughts on what we're doing starting right away?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. I think we're just adding to, just adding more value to what we're doing already. I think, what we've done really well in the past is really help, our listeners kind of with ideas and just inspiration from people within the industry, people with, from outside the industry. But one of the things that we talked about before that we've really seen with small business clients is the accountability factor and kind of lack thereof of really feeling like you're on an island. And I get it and I see it. So we said, how can we kind of be a part of that, right? How can we help with that and be a bit of an accountability partner in a way that's not too hard to be a part of, right? It's not a massive commitment, right? It's still somewhat easy to do, but we're able to hold you accountable. And the things that we've all kind of not liked with some experiences that we've had with kind of other tools or programs or things like that, is the lack of like resources and actual tools that you're given, right? So like tangible things that you can have and print off and utilize and things like that. So that's what we wanted to be able to do, especially with the event series, is this idea. The events are there as really that accountability partner.
Yep.
Right. Let us help you be, kind of held accountable. Right. And let us help, kind of set that framework for you for how should I like run the business, right? How can I think about the business? How can I get above the business, 7 times a year, really pull back and really think and strategize about it, right? And so especially like on the Club Capital side, I mean, we offer, the strategic accounting and CFO services. And, that's definitely a layer of this, but it's different, right? It's, that's the specific financial side of kind of implementing it. And what's that going to look like, right? But, you need to have the time to really just think about the business as well. Strategize for, what are the goals that you want to have happen? What are the things you want to do by certain time frames? And it kind of sets the tone for how to do it, right? And what to focus on and how to plan the financials and, the hiring and, et cetera, et cetera. And so, just being able to build upon what we've done already, kind of combine the strengths of, kind of our 2 backgrounds, and really be able to deliver that in, what should be a very, I think, relatively easy, low barrier kind of way for our clients is going to be great. I'm pumped about it. I mean, I'm excited not only from from us launching something new and kind of seeing how everybody reacts to it, but I think it's just a great way. I've been a part of these and some of these that you've ran before, and they're great ways. So I'm excited to, I'm going to be I'm going to be a fan and a participant too. So I'm excited about it.
As entrepreneurs and business owners, we started our business because in a lot of ways, we wanted freedom. We wanted to be able to do what we wanted to do. We didn't want other people telling us what to do. And by that nature, we can, without even a lot of times knowing it, this was part of my story, is push against very hard anything that was structure, process, and routine oriented. I heard for years systems and processes. I heard it for years. And I was so frustrated because nobody actually showed me, what are you talking about? What is the right structure? What is the right processes? What is the right routine? And I tried to just begin to kind of cobble together what those are. And at the end of the day, one of them, as an example, with the annual coming up, is how do you plan a year? Like, what does that actually look like? I mean, I was winging it. I didn't have a tool set. I wasn't going through a guided experience from somebody to actually give and open up the space for me to take 5 minutes and think about, well, what were some of the good things that happened this past year? And why should I even do that? And how do I build upon that? Well, that's what we're going to do. And so the reality is everything we want, even though as entrepreneurs, we will push hard against, we will resist structure, process, and routine, which is why we started our businesses in the first place, is because we didn't want somebody telling us what to do. But the reality is everything we want is on the other side of that. And so if we can see that and we can put ourselves in the right environment, we can get ourselves around like-minded individuals in a community of people that are trying to accomplish the same thing. And specifically, the clear outcome that I have for the annual is that you walk out of that with 75% of your 2024 plan completely done. 75%. There's going to be some things that you've got to go in and actually fill in some of those gaps, but we want you to get the big rocks in. And there's a certain structure and a process that you can go through to actually build a plan that works and one that you can finally believe in. So we'd love to have you join us at our very first Above the Business virtual event series. Of course, it's going to be on Zoom. So go to abovethebusiness.co. Our podcast sponsors, David and Alex and all of them are so excited about what we're doing. They're behind us fully. They're great partners. We're appreciative to their support over the years that we've had them. And look, at the end of the day, we could partner with a lot of different people. We could go out and build a whole team for sales, but we want to work with the best. Okay, we want to work with the best people that we have a long-term partnership with, and we've been able to do that with David and Alex. We're grateful for them and their companies, Autopilot Recruiting, and what David's doing at Coach P. And so they're behind this fully. They're going to be a part of the annual. So make sure that you go and check them out, check out their businesses. Go to our website, check out our new logo. I'm really pumped about that. It's not often, by the way, that when you go to a marketing company, and I think, Micah, we should give a shout out to the marketing company that we have been working with, that they gave us, when we pitched the vision and the idea to them, they said, we're going to come back with three basically logos and icons and kind of a branding around it. And we went through a really cool exercise with them. I thought that was great. Micah did his, and then I did mine, and we were very much aligned. Again, I think that speaks to the conversations we've had and the vision of what we were trying to do. A couple things we saw differently, but for the most part, we were more than directionally aligned. And they came back with three. The first one, I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Yeah, it's not too bad. Second one was kind of nah. third one, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's it. And so Micah, I talked to him. Hey, what do you think? He's like, number 3. It was like, done. And to have that, we went with it from the jump with almost no revisions is pretty awesome. So they have worked with a number of the big names, Dave Ramsey, Brendan Bouchard. So I want to give our marketing team a big shout out for what they have been able to do and helping kind of bring this brand to life and pull it together and take the vision that I have and Micah has of how to serve all of you in better ways. They've been exceptional to work with. And so, Micah, I'll throw it to you, and then I'll close us with the last word.
No, look, I think you've said it well. I think we're just incredibly excited to kick this off. Really, ultimately want to hear from everybody here as well. Would love to hear your feedback on initial thoughts. Obviously, this is just the announcement, so more to come. But we do have in just what it'll be 10, 11 days from the release of the podcast. Of this podcast that our first event will be. So really excited to get everybody's feedback, not only on the rebranding, but the design, the logo. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the first event? Are we directionally correct for who have been our loyal listeners for a number of years? So would love to hear from you. And just a reminder of the website, it is abovethebusiness.co. We were not able to land.com, but those things happen. But one day.
I just want to close. I say this often, but try not to belabor it too much. I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for the messages that you send to me, whether it's over email or text message about the episodes that have impacted you. The feedback that you give to say, hey, this has made a meaningful impact to my business, helps me to keep going, okay? And helps us to continue to find more ways to impact your business. And so while we want to impact more people, yes, I want to make sure that I'm express my gratitude for all of you that have listened to the podcast for years. I've been able to connect with several of you, and you've shared with me that, hey, I've been in your ear on runs. We've been in your ear on workouts, and when you're driving, doing yard work, hitting golf balls, whatever that may be, it means a lot. We take very seriously the time. It's your time and your attention is the most precious asset for you, and it's most precious asset and most finite asset in the business. And so we try to make these episodes as punchy and as to the point as possible. I hope that this episode was enlightening to you and maybe even gave you some things to kind of pause and reflect on about how you go about making some big decisions in the business. And we're going to help you to be able to make the decisions from being above the business and build a business ultimately by design and not by default. Until next episode, lead well.